Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we'll be looking at the topic, measuring the impact of human resources on business outcome. Our facilitator is a first-timer as presenter on this prestigious platform. His name is Emmanuel Sonoluwa, and I would like to read his profile. Emmanuel has over a decade of experience spanning diverse fields. Is the dedicated professional committed to making a positive impact on individuals and organizations. Emmanuel's journey began in the academia, where he taught mathematics and he honed his skills as a multifaceted educator. Over time, Emmanuel transitioned into administrative roles, facility management, procurement, and ultimately transitioning into his passion, which is human resource management. As an HR professional, Emmanuel has held positions including HR officer, and also much later lead consultant. His experience cuts across recruitment, outsourcing, training, learning and development, background checks, and strategic advisory. Emmanuel has also served as chief of staff and also an acting managing director. Beyond his HR expertise, Emmanuel is a career counselor and life coach. His speaking engagement on spiritual and professional platforms has allowed him connect with audiences and inspire them to full potential. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Emmanuel is also passionate about teens, students, and young adults, and he co-founded Teens Ecclesia, a platform dedicated to empowering and equipping the next generation. Emmanuel is excited to continue to contribute his knowledge, and I'm excited to present to us Emmanuel speaking on the topic, measuring the impact of HR on business outcomes. Over to you, my brother.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the honor of doing this today. I've not told you this before, but it's been a privilege following you all the way for close to 10 years now. You know, yourself and Mrs. Coach Enife Atobiloye happen to be the people that began to shape my understanding properly of what HR is all about. I understand everybody has an idea of what an HR is and all of that, and then we're all passionate. I love people and all of that. But then listening to some of your videos, some videos as far back as 2020, 2022, a lot of content you drop from time to time really help to shape my proper understanding of what HR is all about. And I'm just grateful to be on this platform today, speaking to my brothers, speaking to fathers and mothers in HR, as the case may be. Thank you once again, everyone, for being on this platform. And it's my privilege to share today. Just to know that people are following, please, I would love to know if people are following. Just good evening, good evening, good evening. I just want to know people are here. I can see a lot of people. I don't want to begin to mention them so that I don't pass my boundary. But then good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Kudus or Mrs. Kudus Ayomide. Good evening, everyone. I see a lot of people. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Very quickly, Mr. Kudus Ayomide, I can see the picture now. That's why I didn't want to mention him so that I don't pass my boundary. I see chats coming in. Thank you so much. I just need to know people are here. Yeah, Sophia, good evening. Sheon, good evening. Thank you so much for responding. All right, straight to the point. I just want to start by saying the truth is with over 500 hours already of materials from this platform, and I say that with all humility and adoration because, you know, for a man to be so much of a visionary that is, with everything it looked like he has acquired, the PhD and every other thing, he's still giving his best to the HR community, still ideating. Many of us happen to be on that platform. Some of us that are here probably got jobs via the HR mentorship platform. So for such a man to still be giving his all, and then with over 500 hours of valuable videos that could teach you anything or within the space of HR, I find it very, I don't know what to say, coming on this platform to come talk about this topic, but then I trust that our time will be valuable for it tonight. I've been asked to speak on the topic, measuring the impact of HR on business outcomes, measuring the impact of HR on business outcomes. So the way I will be taking this tonight is I'll be doing a bit of throwback to some definitions, some terms that we all are aware of, but just sharing and probably adding my own perspective as a HR consultant, HR professional to what I think the HR practice should look like. It's so much of a burden. I don't want to say painful, that with all that good people are doing, good people like Mr. Lee and Adeosho and a lot of people doing within the HR practice, we still have a few bunch of people who are not getting it. And then they are rubbing off on every other person. And then HR are bad people, blah, 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 and all of that. But I believe that eventually our voice will be heard and we'll be able to add our quota to the HR practice in every ramification. So many things I'll be saying tonight will be both in context and as a content. And that takes me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is content versus context. I want to start with this because I understand. Please let me confirm you can see my slide, you can see my screen. So that I'm not talking over the top of my head, please. Just 1 minute to confirm that. Please, can you see my screen? And am I audible? Just 1 minute to confirm that. Please respond in the chat box. That will help me guide my conversation. All right. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sophia. All right, so content versus context. And the reason why I want to speak to this is I see a lot of copy and paste happening within the HR practice. And I think it's something we need to be very aware of because whatever you seek to implement will first come as a content. For instance, we have about 500 hours already on this platform alone of videos and all of that. But as much as that may be, everything is content. And one very thing that I see happening is a lot of people just pick content and lift content without checking their own context to be sure if it is applicable to them. You see a lot of people, they just chat you up and say, oh, please, do you have this document? Some people come ask for policy, and there's nothing bad about that. The HR practice, we are here to help one another and to impact one another. So there's nothing bad about that. But I think the painful part is some people just copy and paste without editing, without checking their context to be sure if what they've gotten from A, B, and C is applicable within their own system. And so I really want to speak to that because most of the things I'll be saying tonight, I want you to treat them as content. And then you pick what is applicable and then apply it within your own context. And that is why I started from here. Pick whatsoever, 500 hours, massive learning, massive opportunity, a lot of things to learn from a lot of people. But then you treat it as content and then bring it within your own context. For instance, I understand that we talk about respect and then we have a lot of HR, Cambridge people who come from outside the country. And then you come within a space, you look at the policy, and then the first thing you want to implement within that space is saying, we need to, we understand respect and all of that, but where I'm coming from, we call ourselves by name. And then that is content. A lot of organizations in Nigeria are beginning to adopt that. But imagine that kind of HR finds himself within the academia, say a university where you have professors, you have vice chancellors, you have all of those, pro-chancellors down the rank. And then probably you came in as an HR assistant just to help, and then you say, no, we must implement this. Where I came from, we call ourselves by first name. So if you bring that content and you don't apply it well within your context, you see that you begin to breed a lot of enemies because I wonder how you are going to call your vice chancellor by name. or how you are going to call a professor that has been there for about 35 years by name. So that's what I mean by whatsoever you hear tonight, treat it as content. And then you can now bring it within your own sphere and then apply it within your own context. I want to believe that is clear. And then let me go straight into the contents I have tonight. So HR, in my opinion, is largely company-centered before it is people-focused. And I really love that you hear me clearly on this, so that you are not taking me out of context. Like I said, treat whatsoever I say tonight as content. HR, in my opinion, is largely company-centered before it is people-focused. For me, I believe a lot of people, I don't want to call it misplaced priority or probably ignorance, but some people believe it is people-centered. And so you see a lot of, not really a lot, but most people, most HR, when you ask them, for example, people that are just starting, or why do you want to join HR? I love people. And then they become, if they are not careful, they become people pleasers. They want to please the MD. They want to please the employee. They want to please the cleaner. They want to please the gate man, just because they feel, oh, I'm about people. No. In my opinion, I believe human resources largely company-centered first. If the company is not there, the people will not be there. I understand if you say if the people are not there, the company will not be there too. But then people are replaceable. And that is the hard fact we need to face ourselves with. Anybody within the organization is replaceable. But if the company is not there from the onset, then the people will not be there. So your assignment or our assignment as HR professionals is to put the company in view before you begin to talk. Because if you don't even understand what is happening within the company, you don't understand the philosophy of the company, you don't understand the vision, you don't understand the mission, you don't understand the overall objective, you don't understand what the goal for the year, of the strategy for the year is all about, then you just go about being people pleaser without putting the company in focus. And that's why I said the HR, in my opinion, is largely company-centered before it is people-focused. So your concern is the company. How are we going to move this forward? And this is important if you are going to really be able to measure business impact of your department. You are really going to be able to add value to that company where you are. You need to be company-centered. Whatsoever your decisions, whatsoever your strategy, your KPI must be company-centered. And then because it is company-centered, you now come to your own focus within the organization, which is people. Just like probably finance could be company-centered and finance-focused. Manufacturing or marketing will be company-centered, but marketing-focused. So as HR, we are company-centered, but people-focused. And so it's one of my mentors that say for you to understand what HR is or what something is, you first need to understand what it is not. And that's the way I want to try and define HR tonight. I understand we've said a lot of things that HR is. So in my few years of experience, I've begun to realize that there are some people that are doing some things. We call them HR. But it looks like they don't even understand what HR is. So in my way of adding to that perspective and all the definitions, I would rather take an anti-clockwise direction on this by saying, okay, what is HR not? And so I may not be able to go through all of this, but I'll mention something. One is that HR is not a cost-cutting center. I don't know how many people will agree with this with me, but I think it's high time we begin to tell ourselves some of these things. HR is not a cost-cutting center. Yeah, Folari, thank you. I see your response there. Thank you so much. HR is not a cost-cutting center. In the bid, and I think it's because a few of the people in the HR practice don't understand these company-centered people focused, because I don't see a reason why probably a company will have a budget for a role, and then you understand the bandwidth that role needs, you understand the capacity that role needs and all of that. We've seen company collapse just because an HR was trying to cut costs, hired someone who was cheaper, and then the cheaper person brought everything down. The cheaper person began to introduce cultures that are not, or the cheaper person was not even up to par for the work that needed to be done. And so just because you wanted to save a 1,000 or a 2,000, you brought in someone that is not capable, as against getting someone who has the value, who has the quality, and is asking for just a little bit more on the budget that was. So it is not a cost-cutting center. I've seen a lot of HR, and then they ask them, I think I've heard of a few, and they ask them, oh, what's your contribution to our company? And you say, okay, let's begin to deduct salaries of people because they are coming late. And then because of lateness, you begin to, your own contribution to that company is to begin to charge 1,000 naira for coming late, 2,000 naira for coming late. It's not a cost-cutting center. HR is not a cost-cutting center. There are ways of enforcing discipline and ways of ensuring that the rule of law and the policy within the organization is carried out that not necessarily involve you cutting people's salary and all of that. So when I say cost cutting, that is what I mean. When you begin to discipline people by taking out of their salary or removing some benefits. I've seen a lot of, I've heard of a company where when they wanted to start, the company wanted to buy a bus, for instance, to shuttle their staff just for it to be more comfortable and more convenient for them to come to work. But the HR say, no, these people are not worth that much. Why do you want to get a bus? Everybody can trade. Some people can, don't let us take on this cost. It will be too much for our budget. Let them take it out of their pocket. I've seen HR who have said that. You're not, why do you do that? It's not a cost-cutting endeavor. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. Whichever way it is, if you need to take out exuberance, you need to take out all of these things, why not? By all means, you do that. But when it comes to impacting on people's productivity, and then you are insisting you take out of salary for absence, you take out of salary for not meeting KPIs, and these are not things that we agreed on at the inception of when that person wanted to begin to work, then those are some of the things that impact eventually on business impact, business success, and some of these things. So one, HR is not cost-cutting center. Two, HR is not one size fit all. Dear colleagues, fathers, mothers within the HR practice, allow me to say this again, HR is not one size fit all. I've seen HR who wants to do everything. HR who wants to do everything. When it comes to tax, you want to have the full knowledge of taxation, and you even be arguing with the accountant. No, that is not how it is done. As the HR, no, you are not one size fit all. You are largely company-centered, people-focused. I think it's that time I say this, HR and dear brothers, please let us ring this loud. Let other people also do their job. I've seen HR who wants to be in charge of admin for a company that has an admin in place. In fact, as an head of admin. And then sometimes when HR begin to fight and say, no, they are not recognizing me, I'm supposed to be in the management, I'm supposed to be among those making the decisions. Sometimes I feel, not for everybody, but sometimes probably some of those agitations are because you just want to lord it and then you want to understand and put yourself. No, HR is not one size fits all. For instance, HR is HR. You are not a legal officer. So you cannot be arguing with the lawyer or the legal practitioner in the company about the interpretation of the law. If the lawyer says this is the interpretation, don't say, no, I'm the HR. We are the one that created this policy. Because the day issues are going to come, don't forget, as the HR, you will need a lawyer to defend you. And if you've already fought the company lawyer, I don't know how you want to do it at that time. So please, again, HR is not one size fits all. It's good that we have the understanding of what is happening with the company, happening in admin, happening in human resource as your department, happening in legal, happening in manufacturing, but we are not one size fits all. And we need to understand that, because I see a lot of jobs coming up, job descriptions, and say HR must know IT, must know fintech, must know this, HABA. HR is not one size fits all, because this helps us to focus on what our major objective is, and then we are able to deliver business impact when it is supposed to be. HR is also not a paperwork office. Don't let it be that the only time your people within your organization see you is when they want to do this form, fill that form, and that's the only time, or when someone is come is coming late to work and then there's a query to fill, that's the only time we hear about you. There's no way you can measure business impact that way. So HR is not just a paperwork office. Oh, have you signed this? Have you signed that? Oh, your guarantor's form. And that's the only time we hear from you as an HR. No, that is not what HR is all about. HR is deeper and more than that. HR is not an isolation quarters. I see a lot of, not a lot, probably a few, maybe because within the tech space that I play in and some other industries that I play in, you see a lot of HR just want to stay somewhere and, they believe we are in a class of our own. And I want to understand that probably the people in the company also cause it, because when something is not going on, HR. But when things are going fine, nobody talks of HR. So as an HR, you probably have been hurt and then you just want to stay in a class of your own. No, HR is not an isolation center, because you won't understand what is happening within the company if you don't mix up, if you don't put yourself into the business. And you can't measure the impact of a business or your impact to a business when you are not fully integrated into the business. So while HR is not one size fits all, it is not also an isolation center. Let them see you, let them hear from you. When marketing is talking in management meeting, listen to them. And from your HR perspective, you can chip in an idea that will turn around whatever is coming in for them. So HR is not an isolation quarter. It is also not a punishment center. Don't let it be query, and all of that. I understand it's deep. Please, I've already said it. Take what I'm saying as content and then apply it within your context. But HR is also not a punishment center. We are not compliance architects alone. And what I mean by compliance architect is depending on the sector you are in, and that is why I said treat it as content and bring it to your context. But then when it comes to compliance, for instance, I've seen human resources also want to be in charge of HSC, and then you want to see this and that, and then the safety officers are saying this oath that you are telling them cannot be here, and you say no, you need to let's understand that we are working in collaboration and in partnership with different officers and different departments, and that is the way we can make the business work. Finally, HR is not a reaction officer. Don't let it be that the only time we hear from you as an HR is when there's a problem and then they need to punish people, or the management want to react against something and then they push you. Oh yeah, go and do this for us. No, we are not reaction officers. Yeah, human resource personalities. So that is what, in my opinion, I believe HR is not. And so let's go to the next one. HR, as you know, it is more strategic and requires proper positioning to directly influence a company's success. So while HR is not all of that, we need to begin to, in our mind, because HR is a very wide spectrum. There's a lot within HR, but no matter the sphere or the niche you are beginning to carve for yourself within the HR space, we must understand that we must begin to assume a more strategic rather than a daily or day-by-day kind of operation. Now, we must begin to think strategically, and then that is the only way we can begin to directly influence the company's success. When the management and then the CEO or whoever is there sees that you are beginning to contribute more strategically, then they begin to talk to you about, oh, how can we influence business impact? But if all you do is paperwork, day-to-day thing, they probably will not even call you when there's a meeting, because they really don't see how you hard up or whatever you do to the company. Meanwhile, as human resources, we are meant to be partners with all that is happening within the organization. And that is the way we can begin to put our foot forward and begin to put impact and then increase impact within the organization. By the end of this training, I'm hoping that I'll be able to understand critical HR role in driving business success, be able to identify key metrics for measuring HR business impact. We'll be able to learn relevant strategies for effective measurement of HR contribution to business outcomes, and we'll be able to develop a framework that helps to communicate measured HR value or impact to stakeholders. So yeah, we are in for a good time tonight, and I really want to once again appreciate everyone coming in again. Wow, a lot of people. Thank you so much for being able to join this tonight. So let's there's a bit of mathematics along the way. Don't forget, you're trying to measure business impact. But I know there are amazing people here, fathers and mothers, colleagues within the HR practice. So definitely we don't have a problem about that. All right, so let's move. And as much as possible, I've tried to what I've tried to do is to simplify everything I want to say. So I'm not saying so much. I've tried simplifying everything I want to say, so that I don't begin to sound so deep and all of that. We are trying to measure business impact. And so these are things that should be relatable. And so I've not done so much deep work within the calculation part of this training. I've just done basic things that everybody can relate with. And then before the end of this training, we'll be able to look at how all of this ties in to one another. All right, straight up, definition of terms, you already know. This is just to start on a very light note. I know we all know these things, but I think it's also good to remind ourselves often as possible. All right. Human resource, this is the department or function in a company that is responsible for managing employee relations, recruitment, compensation benefits, learning development, training, and every other thing that concerns the humans within that organization. So pretty much that is what the human resource department or function in an organization is saddled to deal with. Then when we say business outcomes, what do we mean by business outcomes? These are measurable results or achievements that contribute to a company's overall success. Don't forget, when we say business outcomes, we are talking of measurable results. And we will get there, but let me say, when we say measurable, it doesn't have to be quantitative alone. It doesn't have to be quantitative alone. It could also be qualitative. So when we say measurable results, or when we say business outcome, measuring business impact, it doesn't have to be in the understanding of 1 + 2 + 3. It could be, oh, this is good, oh, this is very good, oh, we are better now. And then, so it doesn't have to be always quantifiable. Sometimes it could be qualifiable or qualitative measurement. But business outcomes, these are measurable results or achievements that contribute to a company's overall success, increased revenue. It could also contribute to increased revenue. It could be measurable results that contribute to improved profit for the organization. It could be measures that contribute to better customer satisfaction, if that is what the business goal is all about. It could be measurable results that contribute to higher market share. And so these are what business outcomes are: measurable results or achievement that contributes to company overall success. KPIs are specific, measurable, achievable, relatable, relevant, time-bound goals that are used to track progress and measure performance. Don't forget, what we say is KPIs must be smart. I get to work with a lot of organizations and I see KPIs set for people and I just smile, because many of those KPIs, they probably will not be achievable in 10 years because they are not specific, they are not measurable, they are not even achievable. For a company that is doing, say, a turnover of 1 billion naira annually, and then you just wake up and set a target and say, this next year, from 1 billion that you didn't meet, you probably did a 20%, which is 200 million. Then you set another 1-year strategy, 1-year goal, and say, this new year, we want to hit 10 billion. From 1 billion you didn't achieve. No. KPIs, strategies, and these things, they must be measurable, they must be achievable, they must be relevant, and they must be time-bound. Don't just tell people get 50 customers. Under KPIs, it should be get 50 customers for this product or this service that we are offering within this period of time, quarterly. It should be measurable, it should be time-bound, and it should be relevant to what the company is trying to achieve. The fourth one is HR metrics. When we say HR metrics, what do we talk about? Because for you to measure business impact and you're in the HR department, how you measure your impact to the business is using your HR metrics. You can't use finance metrics to measure business impact of HR. Neither can you use marketing metrics to measure business impact of HR. If you want to measure HR impact, it has to be using HR metrics. And so what are HR metrics? HR metrics are quantifiable measures that assess the effectiveness of HR initiatives and impact on business outcome. Time to fill, these are some of the metrics you probably look at: your time to fill, your cost per hire, your attrition rate, employee engagement, employee performance, and all of those things. These are things, HR initiatives you can use to measure, or metrics that you can use to measure your business impact. Let me quickly run over to the next. I'm going to do an icebreaker very soon, and I would really want people to talk. I have 5 minutes for that, so I really love people to talk when we get there. So number 5 is talent management. It is also some of your a strategic approach to attracting, developing, and retaining high-performing employees to meet current and future needs, succession, replacement, development, and training. This is very important to your business outcomes and measuring business impact, because this is where we need to begin to pivot into or get to as HR people. You know, remember I said we must begin to become strategic. You must become so strategic to the point that before people leave the organization or before someone resigns, you are not at that point where when someone now resigns, you are lost. You now have a key man risk that you are not able to deal with, or you are not able to quickly fill up. These are strategic conversations and strategic positioning we must begin to have as human resource within an organization. And this is one of the things that talent management helps us to achieve. Then ROI, this is a financial metric that measures benefits of an investment relative to its cost. All right, let me take a pause here and ask my icebreaker, my question. So I would really love us to talk. If you probably are in a noisy place, you can't talk, you probably drop your comment within the chats. So I want to hear from us. Between employee engagement and employee satisfaction, as an HR professional, which one do you prefer? Or which one do you think, if I were given a chance to pick between these two, I think I'll probably just pick employee satisfaction. Let them be satisfied. Or no, not satisfaction. No, let us do it. Let them be engaged. Which one? That's the first question I want to ask on this. Do you think they are mutually exclusive or mutually inclusive? So let me hear from us. Thank you so much. Let me come to the chat section and see our reaction. Employee engagement, employee satisfaction. Which one are you for? You definitely cannot be against. So which one are you for? Do you just want your employees to be satisfied, or you want them to be engaged? Are they mutually inclusive or mutually exclusive? I have 5 minutes for this. I'll probably do this till 7:40. All right, I'm seeing reactions. I'm getting reactions. All right, thank you. I'm reading. So I'll take a few reactions, right? Employee engagement would aid employee satisfaction. Okay. Really? Employee engagement would aid employee satisfaction? I don't know how many people agree with that, Priya, but then let's say it goes. Employee engagement would aid employee satisfaction. I don't want to say yes or no. I'm trying to confuse us a bit here, so allow me to do that. Employee engagement would aid employee satisfaction. But Priya, you agree with me that not all our staff wants to be engaged, right? Not all of them. I'm sure I'm not alone on this, but there are some employees that it looks like they just came for soft life within the organization. Don't stress me, please. Don't stress me. In fact, this work is becoming too much. But when it comes to let's do a party or birthday celebration, you see them at the forefront. So, and then I also understand the fact that some organizations are beginning to overdrive this conversation on engagement, and then if you see some targets that some employees have, even as an HR of another organization, you pity them and be like, how do you survive under this kind of work atmosphere, work condition, under this kind of company culture? How do you survive? So I understand what you're trying to say, but I'm trying to confuse people so that they don't begin to look at your question. Okay, Modupeola, employee engagement helps you shape employee satisfaction. I think that sounds nice. Employee engagement helps you to shape employee satisfaction. Okay. Let me see other reactions. If they are satisfied, they will likely be engaged. All right, Rala Ayotunde, please pardon me if I'm not adding Mr. or Mrs. I don't want to miss the mark, so I'm just reading what I'm seeing on the name. So pardon me if I'm not able to say Mr. this or Mrs. this or Professor this or Dr. this. My apologies for that. If I see that in front of your name, I'll kindly acknowledge that. If they are satisfied, they will likely be engaged. Wow. Wow, if they are satisfied, they will be engaged. But I've seen, like I said, treat what I say as content and put it in your own content. But I've seen people who were so fed in the organization, so fed. In fact, I know of an organization where they went for company retreat in December, and then they fed these people, took them to an hotel, everybody enjoyed. And then in January, attrition rates went up. Will we say they were not satisfied, or was the retreat done a damage control, probably because they were predicting that people will want to leave? I don't know. If they are satisfied, they will likely be engaged. All right. All right. Mutually inclusive. All right. I see that also. Oyilola, pardon me, I can't mention the first name in front. Oyilola Money, I see that. Jonah. In my opinion, employee engagement leads to satisfaction. All right, employee satisfaction. Oh, okay. So Shegun Oyede, you said employee satisfaction. The other ones I've been reading as a blend of employee engagement and employee satisfaction. I don't know if you could unmute. Just let me know if you can unmute. If you can't, it is fine. But then I want to know why are you tilting towards employee satisfaction, leaving out employee engagement? I don't know if you can unmute. If you can, it would really be nice if you could do that. But if not, it's okay too. I just feel like I need to hear somebody's voice to encourage my training tonight. All right, like Mr. Iluyemi said, it's my first time training on this platform. I've always been listening to trainings and all of that. So I don't just want to bore you with just my voice. I would love if anybody could probably unmute and speak to this. Okay, Aisha Larakwe, I'm for employee engagement because the bottom line is there's definitely no method you can put in place to satisfy all your employees. That is very true. I agree with that. But engagement in an effective way based on their strength is more paramount. Wow, I think I agree with that. I think I agree with that. I think I agree with that. Okay, Prince Omoniwa. Employer engagement is key. It is an engaged employee that derives satisfaction at the end. So employer engagement gives birth to employee satisfaction. All right, that is really not what we are here to deal with, but that's more like an icebreaker. I just wanted I really wanted people to talk, right? So I'm sure when we get to the part of the calculation, I could now ask people to unmute their mic. I can see that we are following, and it really gladdens my heart to see that we are deriving value from these. All right. Okay. I think, oh yeah, I love this other thing you said here, Prince Omoniwa. No satisfaction keeps employees on their job forever. Employee engagement gives everyone the sense of belonging. Nothing can satisfy employees except to keep in touch. All right. I think that will be all I can take on this icebreaker. Satisfaction comes along with the engagement. Abiodun Oladimeji. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate our contributions. All right. So when we say employee engagement, what really do we mean? When we say employee satisfaction, what really do we mean? Let me quickly do that before I move on to my next slide. So employee engagement is the level of commitment, passion, and enthusiasm that employees have for their work and their organizations. Please mark those two. Employee engagement is the level of commitment, passion, and enthusiasm that employees have for their work and their organizations. If we are not achieving that too, we don't really have employee engagement. If what they are passionate about is just the work and not the organization, then it is not balanced. If what they are passionate about is the organization, they just love the organization. Oh, this organization is beautiful, and not the work, then it is still not engagement. because these are the things that give birth to disengaged employees, disgruntled employees, and the employees that are using your printer in the office to print their resignation letter and print the handover document and even print the certificates they want to give to the new organization. In fact, they are using it to print the documents they are going to. So we need to understand they have to be passionate about both the work and the organization. When we achieve those two, then we have employees that are really engaged. So what is the employee satisfaction? Employee satisfaction is the overall level of contentment and happiness that employees feel about their job, the work environment, and the company. So for you to achieve employee satisfaction, they must feel love, they must feel this happiness and contentment with the job, the work environment, and the company. And there you have employee engagement and employee satisfaction. For me, I believe they are mutually inclusive. They are not exclusive. They are mutually inclusive. Without one, you probably will not be able to achieve the other. And if one is absent, then it is an indication that you are already losing out. For instance, if your employees are not satisfied, eventually, if that is not sorted, you begin to have employees that are not engaged. Also, if your employees are not fully engaged and you give work to somebody who's not doing, your employees are already telling you and beginning to tell you, oh, I think I'll be sick tomorrow. You know, there are some employees that can take permission for next week's sickness. Not this week, oh, the sickness that will come in it, and they'll be telling you it is my sickness. That is how it does me every week. HR has seen things in this life. And you know, if you're beginning to have it, and then you look at your absenteeism rate, and you see that about 50% of your employees within 1 month have already taken permission or they've been absent, it is an indication that either they are not satisfied or something is happening. And if you don't tackle that, you begin to have a high attrition rate or high disengagement rate. So one is pointer to the other. If you get one right, you probably also will get the second one right. All right, let's move on to the next. Thank you so much for all the contributions that came in. I don't take them for granted. All right, understanding HR rules. And I've said this before, I just wanted to state it. Don't forget that I say HR is not compliance architect, right? We don't manufacture compliance. We are more like compliance collaborator. We collaborate with organizations or with departments that ensure that, except it is compliance that is HR based. But there are some compliance that are not HR based. For instance, if you are talking of tax compliance, or you are talking of documentation compliance for your engineers on site, or you are talking of compliance with maybe branding and all of that, you can collaborate. You are not the one that will begin to tell them this is the kind of branding materials that go out, and you are telling them to your brand when there's a brand manager. So that's why I say we are not compliance architects. We are more like collaborators in ensuring that the organization and the business is compliant. That's number 5. We're also strategic partners. We are not just paperwork office. We are not just a glorified admin assistant or a glorified administrative officer. No, we are strategic partners, thinking about profitability, thinking about how to grow market share. This is what we do as human resource professionals. So while you may start as an officer who is involved in day-to-day activities, you should not sit down there. We should not relax in that position, because the end goal is that we can become strategic partners and a formidable force for the organization. Rather than being called compliance architects, we are culture architect. And I think it is Peter Drucker that says, culture will eat strategy for breakfast any day, anytime. I'm going to come to that and explain my perspective on that. But then we are culture architects. We shape and form and frame the culture of the organization. And the reason why this is important is you cannot begin to measure business impact if the culture within the organization is shaky, because culture will feed into every other thing. Culture will feed into all the metrics you are talking about. Is it attrition rate, your culture? There's a way your culture can imply and can impress upon your attrition rate. You talk of employee engagement, your culture can sort that. So culture is at the core, and this is what we are architect of. Don't forget, we are talking about measuring the impact of HR on business, and you can't talk impact in an organization and exclude culture. It is not possible. It is not possible. It is not possible. So we are culture architects, and these are the things we need. When we talk of culture, culture could be as simple as, I don't know, as simple as greeting, respect, the culture of respect. It could be as simple as people having a very grounded understanding of what your vision and mission are all about. Culture could be as simple as what culture do you put in place to honor people, to celebrate people within the organization? What culture do you have when it comes to your onboarding? How does your onboarding, how do you conduct that? How do you train your people? There could be a culture of training. Learning within the organization is a culture that could feed into so many things and could help you come out with a very great impact on your business and your company. So culture is at the core, and that is something we should never joke with. We have employee retention. Is also part of HR rules. When we say retention, it doesn't mean people should not go. It only means that the number of people going part-time should not be more than, the attrition rate should not be too high. For a company, if you are beginning to have 51% attrition rate within a year or within 2 years, that is tragic. I know of a business that as at the time while I was consulting for them, they had about 30 staff, 20 on site, about 10 working remotely. And then we had 51% attrition rate within a year. Meaning within a year, they've employed about 60, 65%. Within 1 year, employed about 65%. And at the end of the year, we had just 30 remaining. That's about, if not 100%. No, that's about 51% attrition rate. Meaning an average of 3 persons were leaving the organization every month. That is so high, so high. And so we are employee retentions. We should also be big on employee retentions. Look at your policies, look at your framework, look at your culture, look at all of these things. Your diversity, equity, and what's the other one? DEI, diversity, equity, and we know it. Don't let me take too much time on that. Our DEI structure and all of the inclusion, inclusion and all of that, because some of these things are pointed to what will happen when it comes to your employee retention. Then finally, we should be talent strategists. And when I say talent strategist, it means that at the point where you begin to incorporate things like succession planning, replacement strategy, and all of these things, we should be talent strategists. There shouldn't be any time where we get stuck and then we don't know what to do, and then we're having a key man risk simply because one person resigned and then the business becomes grounded. We should never have that happening within, because these are things that can impact on business outcomes. All right. How do we measure HR impact? And this is where we come to the mathematical aspect of this, just some metrics that we can measure, and then I'll begin to wrap up for tonight and take questions. I'm sure there probably be 1 or 2 questions that we can take tonight. Yeah, so measuring HR impact. When we talk of HR impact, there are diverse ways of measuring these HR impacts. The first one, I categorize them into 4. The first one is employee productivity. You can measure business impact by measuring employee productivity. When I say measuring employee productivity, this could involve your output per employee. How productive is your employee? These are things you look at when you are measuring your business impact. For instance, I've had it said almost every company I've gone to, what does HR does not do anything. They'll just be there, just giving people letter, giving people offer letter and doing interviews. That's all they do. HR does not do anything. But these people have forgotten that for the business that is running and as the people running it, it is HR. Mostly HR that is involved. If you say you're a company in Nigeria or globally today and you are running properly, it has to be because your human resource department is doing a good job. Because for companies where the human resource has problem, they know how they feel about it. They know what they feel for it. That you are a company in Nigeria today and then you've not been sued in any way, or probably you've been sued, and then because your paperwork were okay, you won the case. It is because you have an HR that is functioning. If that HR is not there, they will sue you for free and take all the money. So when people say HR is not doing anything, they are just don't mind them. They just be catching late comer. HR is beyond that. But how can you prove that you are doing something? It is by these HR impacts and HR metrics that we measure. So under employee productivity, you have output per employee, and there are examples. I'm going to give us examples on how you could calculate your output per employee, absenteeism cost. If you understand what your output per employee is, there's a way when the business now say, oh, we want to scale. And say, for instance, we want to scale by 500% within the next 3 years. As an HR, you understand what that means. If your business is saying they want to scale and they want to increase their productivity or production level, what does that mean to you as an HR? It simply means that if you understand your output per employee, for instance, if you say our company wants to begin to, currently this year or this year we did 10,000 units of a particular product. Next year we want to do 300,000. This year we did 10,000. Next year we want to do 300,000. Simple mathematics, that means that your company wants to push up by about 30% to about 300%. What does that mean on the employee? Are you going to put all of that body on the same number of employees? No. So what does that mean? You probably will begin to look at what are we recruiting for, what department are we supporting, what department are we pushing up, what things do we require to make sure that these employees are satisfied and engaged. And if you can measure output per employee, it is easy for you to talk about, oh, now we have 100 people, we are doing 10,000. For us to do 300,000, based on this output of each and the productivity level of this employee, I think we will need about 300 or probably about 3,000 employees to be able to achieve that number that the business strategy and the impact of the business or the outcome of the business is looking at. But if you don't understand output per employee, you don't even have the correct data of the employees within your auspices, then there will be an issue with that. So that is why this is important. Output per employee, absenteeism, cost, and turnover is also a business impact that a metric you need to look at. I've seen organizations who argue with HR and say HR does not need why do you want them to be clocking in electronically? Just put paper and pen there. Put paper and HR, that's why we employed you. Sit down there and be writing the time when people are coming in. And then you see absenteeism rates go up, or you even see lateness go up. And then there's no account for it because everything is written on paper. And then HR will have to sit down at the end of the month to be calculating who is absent today, who is absent yesterday. But I've seen organizations that have automated all of these things based on the fact that they looked at it. It looks like an average of 10 people come late every day. An average of 100 people don't even come to work within 3 months. So what can we do to this? Okay, this is this. If we do this and do this and do this and surcharge or do this, then I think we can correct this. And then they automated everything. And then that is giving them result like fire. But they will ask you as HR, oh, you want us to automate? Okay, where does this money come from? And then if you understand the cost of absenteeism to your organization and you're able to calculate it and prove it that this is what this absence of these people, of the employees, are costing the organization, why not? Imagine that the absenteeism cost for your organization is about 1 million every quarter. How much will it cost to put whatsoever is there to correct? And in fact, some HR, your MD does not want to hear late coming. That's not your job. Do your job, lead people, and all of that. But if you're able to calculate your absenteeism cost, it's easy for you to be able to say, sir, I'm not talking RSA, based on facts that I have, this is what this absence is costing the organization. And then you have valid facts to speak by, not just ranting and all of those other things that so many people do. Then you must be able to calculate your time to fill. Because if you need to fill about 10 positions, then you need to understand what your average time to fill is, because that helps you to be able to say, okay, if we have these 10 positions to fill, based on our average time to fill, within the next 3 months, we should be able to fill all of these positions and not just working based on emotion or working. You are able to speak strategically as an HR. We also have training cost per hire. We have benefits cost per employee, all of that under employee productivity. Then we also have the second one, talent development metrics you can measure. You can measure your promotion rate. You can measure time to hire. Time to fill and time to hire, I'm not sure they are the same thing. They are probably directly proportional to one another. When I mean directly proportional, they probably mean the same thing in some places, but in some global organizations, time to fill is also not the same thing as time to hire. Just a slight difference, but that is not up for debate. I'm not even sure it's a symposium discussion, right? Then under talent development, you could also look at employee development programs as your EDAs, EAS, employee assistance programs, and all, EAPS and all of that. You probably want to look at those measures. Okay, we want to train these people, and then you've been fighting for training budget under your HR department. They've not released budget. They've released budget to brand because brand can tell them, if we don't do this advert and don't spend this amount of money on branding, forget that we meet this $1 million target you set for us. We need to spend this to achieve this. So branding has done that. Marketing has done that. But it comes to HR, you keep telling them we need to train. Okay, we need to train. The trainings we've been doing, what have been the impact of all of the programs? Then you can't talk. We need to be more strategic, and that is why we measure some of these things. So employee development programs, new hire satisfaction surveys, these are things. Don't forget I said measurements could be either qualitative or quantitative. Then the third one under my categorization is employee retention. And then under employee retention, some of the things you can measure is retention by department, because sometimes when you do retention generally and say, what is the retention rate? Or you inversely calculate that and say, what is the attrition rate? You know, okay, attrition rate is not high, it's just 1% generally or average. But then if you go department by department, you probably will be surprised that a department itself, the attrition rate within that department is probably about 50%. So sometimes while you do attrition rate or retention rates generally company-wide, also try and do retention rate by department. That will give you a true picture of what is happening in some departments, so that some departments that are doing good are not covering up for the inadequacies of departments that are suffering, and they are not speaking up. So that's why sometimes department by department, you do some of these metrics also just to measure how effectively. For instance, you can do an employee satisfaction survey, and within the entire organization, you do a company-wide employee satisfaction survey, and you get your scores, and you're like, wow, this is brilliant. This is fantastic. Oh, we are doing well. But if you not do employee satisfaction survey at department, you'll be so surprised what you find out in some departments, meaning that some departments that are doing good are probably the one covering up for the lapses in some departments that are not doing well. And that is why sometimes you prune and prove your facts department by department. You also have employee engagement surveys and some of these other things. And one thing I want to say under survey generally, questionnaire survey or whatsoever thing, it's nice if you have a professional who is good at drafting psychometric tests and all of this, do the surveys. I understand that we probably want to cut costs, and then you just tell your friend A who is working in firm B and say, guy, I want to do survey. Do you have any template? And they just give you template, but you don't know what the design of that template was meant to achieve. You just saw questions. Oh, these questions are good. And then what are you really trying to measure? What is the philosophy or the psychology around the survey? What do you want to prove by your survey? That will inform the kind of questions that are asked in such a way that you get a real reflection of what you are trying to measure. And that is where psychometry test guys, and some of these guys that help to craft some of these questions, that is where they come in. And that is why I say we are not one size fit all. Sometimes you allow specialists and some of these other guys do their job so that you can, in fact, you allow data analysts do their job. While you have an understanding of data analysis for some of your presentations, when you want to do some deep work, you probably need to get some of these guys to do some of these things so that you get a real reflection of what you're trying to measure. Then the last one is business outcomes. Under business outcome, you can measure revenue growth, measure profitability, measure customer satisfaction, and measure market share growth. Yeah, we'll get into examples now and then look at some metrics. But please, I just want to understand. I just want to know if you're following. A comment within the comment section will let me know that you are following, please. I just want to know we are following. Yeah, we grew again from the 3 to 43. Thank you. I don't know, I just want to know that we are following, please. Just a yes or an emoji or something within the thank you, Oyinlola. Thank you, Sophia. Really appreciate the comment. One more. Who is that coming from? Who is that comment coming from? One more. Thank you. Thank you, Tunde. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All right. Like I said, these are not very deep questions. They are not complicated questions, right? They are not complicated questions. I'm just doing case scenarios here. So I understand we have gurus. We have gurus of HR inside here, specialists, HR specialists and all of that. And I celebrate everyone. It's really a privilege and honor granted to me by HR mentorship and the very delectable, the very special Dr. Oliemi Adeosun tonight to be able to do this. I don't take it for granted. All right. So let us look at some examples. We have workbook 1, workbook 2, workbook 3. We have 6 questions in all. And then I took time to do some practice questions also. So probably when you check the videos again, you want to practice and all of that, you could just look at some of those practice questions and then they help you to get what you want to get. It gives you an idea of what we are talking about. All right. So let's look at the first one. A manufacturing company has 100 employees. In a given month, they produce 10,000 units. You know, while I was preparing for SPHR, I had to do a lot of calculations. And it was so funny because, yeah, I studied mathematics like Mr. Adeyemi said. I did mathematics at Adeosun, and I've just been laughing. I thought I've escaped mathematics. I still come and jam mathematics even in HR. And, you know, it was very funny, but then it was fun, you know, mean medium mode, all the statistics and every other thing coming in between. But it was fun, Sha. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience. So yeah, we are back to mathematics. We are back to class. You're welcome. A manufacturing company has 100 employees, and in a given month, they produce 10,000 units. This question, definitely, you know, probably, like I said, they want to measure the output per employee. And how do you do this? If a company is producing 10,000 units and they have 1,000 employees, the way you calculate your average output per employee is that you divide your produce or your total unit produced divided by the number of employees. That's a simple way. And the way this works is, for instance, if you look at this question, so by calculation, output per employee will be total units produced divided by the number of employees. That is 10,000 units divided by 100 employees, and that will give you 100 units per employee. So where you will be able to prune further, it doesn't mean that each employee under this organization does 100 units. That is one thing you need to know. Some people may be doing more, some people may be doing less. So how do you prune these? You probably want to begin to take some, what does each person, so 100 is what is expected of everybody. Who are those doing lesser than that? Who are those doing more than that? And then through that way, you can even increase productivity, because when employees realize that you are monitoring the amount each of them is producing, they'll probably give in more to productivity. But if you are not measuring their productivity and they see that some people will just say, why am I killing myself? this one is very hardworking, we do all the work. And then you probably will have one person doing 200 while another person is doing 50. And so these are ways you can increase productivity. And for a company that has demand, once your productivity picks up, it also means that your sales will pick up, because when there's more demand and you're able to meet those demands by adding more supply, then you're able to increase productivity for the company. And this is where you come in strategically as an HR. And for instance, they are discussing we need to increase our revenue next year. HR, what do you think we can do? You won't say, no, I'm not in the manufacturing department. How can you be calling HR? You can confidently tell them, based on what we have right now, on an average, each of the employee we have is producing 100 units. And that 100 unit by market value, when sales occur, we have a profit of about $500 billion per annum. So if you want to increase to $500 billion per annum, so if you want to increase to, say, times 3 of that, what does that mean? Is either you find a way to make sure that these employees begin to produce more, probably increase output per employee to 150, if they have the bandwidth for that. If that is not possible and they're already overstretched, what you can now do is you say, okay, our people overstretched. Let's get more people. If we get more people, we're able to produce more, we're able to meet demand, we're able to sell more. And then these are ways you speak strategically as an HR. As simple as this is, if you begin to implement this within your context, you will see that you begin to get direct results impacting on revenue and impacting on your market share. So that's output per employee for you. All right, let's go to absenteeism and turnover. But let me pause. Please, did we get my case scenario and my explanation of output per employee? I just want to be sure we got that before I move on. Just 2 responses, and then I'll move on to the next one. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Tunde. Yeah, I really love this support you are giving me. I'm sure one day we are going to meet, and I will appreciate you personally. Thank you so much for that. All right, let's go to absenteeism and turnover. All right, case scenario, we're looking at a company now has 500 employees in a month. 25 employees are absent. And because they have 500 employees, probably if it is an HR that is really not disturbed, because if an organization has 500 employees, how many do you want to be checking? How many how many A4 papers you want to consume in a day in taking attendance for 500 employees, right? So it probably will be lost in transit or lost in tracking for you to now track and say you missed 20. You might not even realize that 25 were absent, because if you have 500 employees, what's the percentage of 25 to 500? You probably may not, if they are not key man within the organization and they are not very, very, I don't want to say important, everyone is important, but you understand what I'm trying to say. They are not very, very skilled people that you probably, maybe a cleaner, one gate man, you probably may not even notice that they were absent, and you just keep paying salaries for people that are not coming. But then, how do you calculate this? How do you track this? That is why sometimes you have to digitalize some of these things so that it's easy to track. A company now has 500 employees. In a month, 25 were absent. Over the past year, 50 employees left the company. So from this scenario, you can see that something is beginning to happen with this organization. And if we don't probe this organization, before you know it, another year, 25, it will move from 25 to about 50 being absent, and then probably about 100 will now leave the company. Then we now say that, HR, what are you doing? That is why we need to take note of some of these things. Absenteeism is a very important factor you need to begin to take so seriously, because when employees want to begin to dwindle and implicate your culture, and then when your culture begin to suffer regress, it begins to appear in some of these things. One little absenteeism today, another little absenteeism tomorrow, another very magnanimous absenteeism the next one. And then before you know it, hardworking people begin to relent because, well, you are not even taking note of it. So I can't come and kill myself. So this is very important, even in measuring your business outcome. How do you calculate your absenteeism rate? This is the formula: number of absences over total available work days. And when I say number of absences, you need to put that corresponding to the total number of employees that you have. So if you see my slide, you will see that for absenteeism rate, we are assuming that there's 20 work day in that month, 20 work day in that days in that month. And so your absenteeism rate by calculation will be 25 employees that were absent divided by 500 employees times 20 work days. That is how you do your calculation for absenteeism. So you bring your total number of employees and multiply, because when you talk of absenteeism, what really are you measuring there? Productivity of your staff. So how do you measure their productivity? They're supposed to come 20 work days, and then you have 500 people. So if 500 people are supposed to come for 20 days, that tells you the total hours or total productivity level of your employees, and then 25 are now missing. So you need to put in perspective the 500 employees that are expected to resume for 20 days in your workplace, and then you multiply it by the 25 that were absent. By the time you do that, then you divide it by the total available work day, which is 20 multiplied by 100, and then you have, for these, what we have in calculation is 2.5%. So you have 25 divided by total available work days, which is 500 times 20, and then multiplied by 100, and then you have 2.5% for your absenteeism rate. I'm seeing messages coming in, so please give me a minute. Give me a minute. Okay. It's not for me. Thank you so much. I just wanted to be sure about that. All right, so that's how we calculate absenteeism rate. And then the second question is turnover rate. Turnover rate, and how do you calculate turnover rate? Number of employees leaving divided by average number of employees. So don't forget that this company said they now have 500 employees. Now, so as at the time they are calculating their turnover rate, they have 500 employees. But they said over the past year, 50 employees left the organization. So it means that a lot of things have happened. Probably at the time they have 600, another time they have 450, another time they have 550, then they had 520. But now what they have is 500. But that is not the average number of employee. Average number of employee means you calculate what you have January, February, March. If you are looking at annual, you calculate all of that and divide by 12 to give you the average number of employee. And so we are going to take a bit of an assumption here. So assuming that the average number of employees they had within that year that is in view is 450. And the reason why I said 450 is they said 50 left. So say they had 450 average within the year. How do you calculate the turnover rate? That will be number of employees leaving, which is based on what we have here, 50 divided by the average number of employees, which is 450, and then you get your percentage, that's times 100, and that gives you 11.1%. At 11.1%, depending on the organization, it is still a very high turnover rate. 10% is still a very high turnover rate. Because if 50 left and you have 500, that's a whole lot leaving your company within a year. And so that's why it is good to measure some of these things, because if you realize, well, our turnover rate is increasing, what is really happening? Then you can now probably go back to your exit interviews for those who do. I know not touch HR does exit interview. For those who do, you can go back to your exit interviews and find out what is really happening. Or you conduct employee satisfaction survey, or you conduct employee engagement survey, and some of these things will now begin to inform you, oh, really? Okay, I think this is what is happening, and then you're able to pinpoint, and then you're now able to sort whatever the problem is. So that is for absenteeism and turnover rate. So I want to quickly do number 3 because we've done absenteeism rate. Now I want to do absenteeism cost. How do you calculate the cost of absenteeism for an organization. So take a scenario, if an employee earns $100 per day, and that same employee is absent for 5 days, what is the cost of being absent? There are 2 questions here, so I will do them one after the other. If an employee earns $100 per day and is absent for 5 days without permission now, I know sometimes it might be you're absent and then they've taken permission from the HR, whether permission or no permission, let's put all of those categories in place so that we are not making excuses in advance. But whatsoever it is, whether once that person is not there, then there's something it is costing the organization, and it means it is something that needs to be looked at. So in that case, the implication of that that is happening, sorry about that. The implication of that is if you hire the replacement at $150 per day, what is the total absenteeism cost? So now we have 2 questions. Let's quickly look at it. So very simple mathematics. So your initial lost productivity now, that is your cost of absenteeism for the first case scenario, is $100 times 5 days, and that is $500. It means on that single staff not being available in 5 days, you've lost $500. Imagine it were five employees. Imagine you had 500 staff and 5 of them didn't come. You know, 5 is very negligible, but it means if 5 didn't come for 5 days, at the same $100, you've lost $2,500 within that 1 week period that they didn't show up. Now, this is where it gets, I don't want to say worse. Now, imagine you have to hire a replacement because the guy is not there, he's not able to do the work, and the work needs to get done. For example, take a manufacturing organization, for instance. The guy didn't come, he didn't show up. We've called him, he's not picking up, but we need to get this job done. Okay, quickly get a replacement, a contract staff. Then you get somebody and you negotiated $150 to cover for those 5 days. And then it means for replacement costs, you are going to be spending $750. It means in total, your absenteeism cost for those 5 days that one person was not available to attend to his or her job will be a total of $1,250 on just one person not showing up for their work. And so these are facts, and these are proven things you can take to management and say, I think at this time we need to do something about lateness, because based on the facts we have, based on our metrics we are looking at, we are spending more money on replacement, and then we are paying people that are not coming, and it looks like I'm not being empowered to implement what the policy is saying. And I think at this point, I need the management's backing so that we can tackle this and nip this in the board. Because the truth is, there are some, I know some employees that even if you punish them and say you deduct it from their salary, the place they've gone to, they probably are paying them $300 per day. So they look at $100. I remove $100, let them go and quickly also $300. And that's why sometimes some of these deductions are not effective, because the people you are trying to punish, you are really not punishing them, because where they are going to, they are getting more. And so you need to now constructively come and say, okay, how exactly can we best nip this in the board? But you won't even know if you're not measuring your metrics. Now, time to fill. This is, oh, my apologies. Oh, yeah. Time to fill. 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. Yeah, time to fill now. For time to fill, that's very simple, straightforward. Imagine that an advert for a vacant position was rolled out April 29th, 2024, and the chosen candidate signed offer letter on June 28th, 2024. What was your time to fill? If you look at that and calculate from April, time to fill is basically the time between when you roll out your advert and then you begin to take people people's application till the time where you were able to get a candidate that signed offer. Getting candidate is not the thing. If the candidate has not signed offer, that role is still not filled. So when we say time to fill, it is the time between when the advert was rolled out and the time you got a candidate who signed the offer letter, resumed to work, and then did onboarding and all of that. So if you look at between April 29th to June 28th, it is 45 working days. And we assume that is 2 months, 2 calendar months, if you look at the calendar for that. So yes, that is time to fill. Cost per hire. This is simple, straightforward also. These are some of the metrics we measure in calculating business outcomes. So for instance, let's say a company spends 5,000 on recruiting and hiring 10 new employees, and you hired 10 new employees. What's the cost per hire? And you know, some of the things that add up to this cost per hire is depending on if probably you got specialists to conduct the interview, and then you had to fly in the specialists, you had to pay for their services and all of that. You had to roll out advert on LinkedIn, and then it was LinkedIn Premium you used, so you had to pay for those services. You also rolled out your advert on some of these other guys. I don't want to mention names so that it doesn't look like I'm advertising for them, but you know some of these places where you do, and then you promote those job adverts. You were able to do those are the things that add up to the total cost. So let's say your total cost was eventually 5,000, and you're able to hire 10 people. Then it means that your cost per hire is 5,000 divided by the number of successful people you're able to hire, which is 10, and that gives you $500 per hire. But how this helps your business metrics or your business outcome is, so take for instance, you spend $5,000, you hire 10 people, and then when you looked at attrition within these 10 people, within 3 months, you hire 10 people, but you are left with just 4 after 3 months. Would you consider that investment worth it? I'm sure you wouldn't, because if you spend $5,000, hire 10 people, and just 4 people is remaining, except there's something wrong with the entire process within the organization, then it meant that adventure is not worth it. So what do you do next time? How does this guide your decision, your business decision, and overall business outcome next time? You probably will want to look at changing the vendor or the specialist you used, or you probably want to empower your in-house people and get people to do it in-house. Or you probably also want to change some of the sites you got some of these people from. You want to begin to think strategically and say, we cannot spend $500 per person, and then within 3 months, we've lost about $3,000, and then we are left with just 4 people out of 10 people. What is really wrong? Then you're able to probe and then arrive at a decision that helps your business outcomes, that helps your business metrics, and all of that. But for cost per hire, that is how you calculate cost per hire. Now, benefit cost per hire is almost the same thing, but this is tricky. And I think I'll be ending with this because of time. I know I have just 90 minutes, and I have about just about 10 minutes for the 90 minutes to roll out. So please, but let me confirm, please, Mr. Saoluyemi, please, like how many minutes more so that I don't overdrive the conversation? I know we're supposed to
How many minutes do you need?
Okay, I have just 4 slides more. I have just 4 slides more.
Complete
I have
it,
just
please.
4 slides more.
Yeah, you can
All right,
complete it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, so this is where the tricky part is, and this is where I want people to talk. Like I said, there are practice questions after now. You probably, after you look at this, replay this video, you can look at some of those practice questions and take on one of them, or probably we'll do 1 or 2 of those practice questions just to get a sense of what we are dealing with. So this is benefits cost per hire. This is not cost per hire. Now, this benefit cost per hire. So, case scenario, a company spends $50,000 on HMO and EAPs. EAPs are employee assistance programs, training, learning, development, all of those things. Then $150 on launch and stock options. Then $750 on salaries for 100 employees. What is the benefit cost per hire? So this is where I want us to talk. If you look at this conversation, if you look at this question, what do you think is off here? I know I've already put the answer there, it's fine, but I just want this to be engaging. If you can unmute and speak, you have $50,000, you have $150,000, you have $750,000 for salaries for 100 employees, and then you were asked to calculate benefit cost per hire. If you look at the calculation, you see that I'm omitting $750. Why do you think that happened? If you can't unmute, you can put it in the chat box. But if you can unmute, 1, 2 people that can quickly unmute and say, and tell me, why do you think I excluded salaries? We are talking of benefit cost per hire here. Why was salaries excluded? Anybody who wants to speak? 1, 2 people. All right, please, Tom. Yes, please. Just raise your hand. Just raise your hand, please. Thank you so much. Anybody? If you don't want to unmute, you can just put it in the chat box. I'm actually in the chat waiting for responses too. What do you think is off here? You can see HMOs, EAPs, launch, stock options, salaries, and then in calculation, we decided to remove salary and then use only the other words. What do you think happened here? We had my people, don't. Anybody wants to say anything, please? Just 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. Because Lumniba, okay, salary comes after you have been hired. All right. Salary is different from other benefits. Okay, I didn't guys see that. Salary can only be cost after recruitment. Okay. Additional benefits. Okay. So salary is additional benefits. Is that what you mean? Francis Nwali. All right. All right. Any other person? Salary can only be a cost after recruitment. But these people are employees. They've been recruited. So do you mean the salary implies, should they have added the salary? Because they are talking of employees here. And the $750 on salaries for the 100 employees, not the people we are hoping to employ. They are the people that, okay, Francis said it should be HMO and EAP only. Why are we adding these other ones? All right. All right. The other benefits entice you to take the job. All right. Okay. So yeah, I think that's fine. Nobody's raising their hands up. That's okay too. All right. The reason why salaries was omitted here was because don't forget we are talking of benefits. I don't know if I'm correct. I stand to be corrected, but salary is not a benefit. Salary is not a benefit. When you say benefit, it means discretionary stuff that it could even be statutory, but then they're really not so compulsory that if the organization does not do it, they are flouting any legal rule. Those are the things it calls. For instance, lunch is a benefit. The organization can decide to say we are not doing lunch again. They are not doing lunch again. Stock options, they can decide and say, no, we are not giving stock options again, or it has been exceeded, or you don't qualify for stock options. Even HMO, there are organizations where they don't do HMO and nobody beats them up. That is the idea of benefit. But salary is not a benefit because I was employed so that you can pay me. So you are not doing me a favor by paying me salary, except I'm not working. If I'm working, you are not doing me a favor by paying my salary. My salary is like the least you must pay me. At least that is what we build the contract on. So if you are not paying me salary and then you are telling me it's a benefit, my salary is not a benefit. It's something I work for. And that was why we omitted salary from the calculation, because what we are calculating is benefits, not total cost. We are calculating benefit cost per hire. So that's my simple explanation, not to take so much time, why we are omitting salary from the calculation. So you put your HMO, EAPs, launch, and stock options together. That gives you $200,000. And then if you divide that by 100 employees, that gives you $2,000 on benefit costs per employee. assuming that the same cost apply to everybody, right? I know in organization where the benefits, like the HMO package for probably C-suite is different from entry level and all of that. So, but assuming the organization is generous enough to say everybody on the same package, then that is $2,000 per employee on benefits. All right. That takes me to practice question. A quick one. Let's just try the first one. Let me see if there are people that will respond to that. Quickly, a company has 100 employees and produces 2,000 units per month. What do you think the output per employee is? Very simple. Anybody wants to quickly do that and give us the answer in the chat box. 100 employees, 2,000 units per month. If you apply the formula we have, what will you have as your output per employee? Fastest person. Yeah, thank you, Omotola. I'm just seeing your response. Salary is part of productivity cost. It is not a benefit. All right, who wants to quickly answer the first question? A company has 100. Thank you. I don't want to murder your name, but then Heart. I know you can hear me. My apologies. I really don't. Tamuno Bifiri. I think I tried. Tamuno Bifiri Heart. 200. Yes, that's it. How did we arrive at 200? You're laughing. My apologies. Kudus, yes. Francis, yes. When you do that, you do 20,000 divided by 100 employees, and then you have your 200 units per employee. Okay, let's try the second one quickly. A company has 500 employees and 25 were absent in a month that has 22 working days. What is the absenteeism rate? This is getting tougher. Is there anybody that can quickly crack that for us? Using the formula we had, 500 employees, 25 were absent in a month that had 22 working days. What is the absenteeism rate? Can we quickly do that? Anybody wants to give us the answer in the chat box? Using the formula. I have the answer, but I just want to see if there's anybody that can quickly. Don't forget that the formula for that would be, what would that be? The number of those that were absent divided by your 500 times 22, everything multiplied by 100, and that will give you your absenteeism rate. If you do that correctly, you should have, what would that be? Anybody wants to try? Anybody wants to help us? All right, that'll be 25 divided by 500 times 22. Anybody calculating it? 500 times 22. So 25 divided by 11,000 will give you 0.0027. Then you multiply that by 100, and that will give you 0.2% absenteeism rate. So yeah, just have the idea of what we're talking about. That's it. All right, so you have practice question 1, which you can check after now. Practice question 2, which you can check after now. I know you love the 10th one, ROI. We talked about return on investment and all of that. Okay, so how do we maximize HR measures in making business decisions? Like I've said over and over again, how you do that is by comparing metrics. Comparing metrics. If you've listened very well to the examples I cited, the beauty of your cost per employee is if you have accurate data of your employee, and then you have probably the data year on year where you can compare those metrics and say, oh, last year our productivity level by employee was 100. This year it dropped to 80. What happened? Then you're able to advise the business. Oh, last year, or for instance, you say HR is not doing anything, your people are not working. You can come back to them and say, okay, yeah, you said you are not working, but based on the data I have, our productivity level per employee last year was 150 per unit. This year, we've gotten to 250 per unit on average of employee. So what do you mean by HR is not working? Or what do you mean by employees are not working? Because sometimes people just say things that are not traceable, that are not factual. And then as strategic human resource person, you must be able to judge some of those things, not by quarreling or throwing tantrums, by hard facts that you can present probably in business meetings and some of that. So how do you maximize HR measures in making business decisions? You must be an expert or adept at being able to compare these measures, and then you're able to bring your attendance and then bring your absenteeism cost and look at the absenteeism rate. And then based on those metrics you have, you're able to draw an informed conclusion, an informed business decision, and present that to the management or those who need to know. Even the board sometimes need to know some of these things. All right, strategies for coming to these. You need to align your HR goals to company goals. Because if you say you are measuring business outcomes, you are not measuring HR outcomes. You are measuring business outcomes. Then the only way we can even know you are doing what you ought to do or what you were meant to do is if you are able to align HR goals to company goals. In that way, you're able to measure side by side if you are really doing what the company good. And that's why I said at the beginning, we are company-centered, people-focused, not people-focused, company-centered. It is company that is at the back of your mind. Then you are focused on the people dimension of the capital brought in to that business. And then you're able to legislate from there. So it is HR must align with company goals. If there's no alignment, then you can't even measure anything, because it means you are not even in sync with what is happening within the organization. So your HR goals, whatever metric you are measuring, should align. Your HR initiatives should align with the company goals. Once it aligns, then you're able to make informed judgment because you're already in alignment. You must leverage available HR technology, HRIS. You have those guys there that could help you to measure some of these things you are talking about. I've also mentioned biometric that could help you to measure easily. You know how many people are absent? Easily you can calculate you can factually give data and say, last week about 20 people didn't come. You can pull out their names in case they want to say, no, I was here, or they want to argue with you. And then any resolution you now make from those absences, nobody will say, is HR that is deducting our money, or is this that is happening? Because eventually when they come to you, there's no way to prove you deducted the money because everything has been automated. So leverage available HR technology and conduct regular HR audits, both company-wide HR processes and partial. When I mean overall, you could look at your entire HR process and do a regular audit of that. Or you could look at part of it. Probably you want to look at your policy, you want to look at your onboarding process and do an audit of that. Because if you recruit people and then within 3 months they are leaving, within 2 months they are leaving, you probably want to look at how did they get into the company? Was there anything wrong with the onboarding process? Or when people say, you didn't tell us, we didn't know this. But it's in the policy, we told you during onboarding, then you want to verify, were they really informed during the onboarding process? So you may want to look at your onboarding as a process and then do an audit of that to be able to verify why attrition rate is high or any of these things. So yeah, you can conduct regular HR audits. Communication is the bedrock on which HR is born, on which HR is bettered. So communication must be key. You must be an expert communicator via emails, via offline, online, any line. Communication is key, even to measuring your business outcome, even to communicating your business outcomes. Communication is very key because there's a way you will talk in business meetings, they probably will tell you don't come again. There's a way you are passionate and then you want them to know but then communication is very key. This is very important for you to achieve business success and impact on business outcomes. Then benchmark industry standards. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is developing a communication framework. How do you develop your communication framework? The reason why I put a big question mark there is that only you know. Only you know what is happening within your organization. Like I've said at the beginning, you must understand content and context. So all I've said so far, I begged while I was starting that treat them as content. Now, I cannot be specific because HR is wide, and for every human resource, we have people from different niche, different, we have manufacturing, FMCG. So we cannot be drilling down to it. We won't have time. We won't even finish. So then how do you develop your own communication framework? You sit down with all of this information and all the other informations you've gathered, and then you can draft your own framework for communicating these changes. How do you communicate to your stakeholders? You want to think about that. How do you communicate to third parties? How do you even speak with your vendors? The problem you're having with your business outcomes may even be from your vendors. It might not be internal, it could be external. You want to look at your production chain or your logistics and all of that and see where is this problem coming from, and then work a framework to communicating that to them. So it is highly personal. Developing a communication framework is highly personal. And I know there are trainings we've had in the past that dealt with this. And so I don't want to take so much of time talking about this, but the perspective I want to take on this is it is highly personal. And then only you know what is happening within your organization. You know when is the right time to speak with your boss. You probably might have a very fantastic presentation, but you are presenting it on the day that your boss is very angry with everything happening. And then you felt, oh, that's the right time I can communicate. And then he's telling you, no, I don't even understand what you're talking about. Please, can you get out of my office? You get a lot of that as an HR. Can you please get out of my office? I'm not ready for this now. And then you felt like, you have a problem. I'm trying to solve your, I'm not ready for this now. So you need to understand how your contexts work. And then you develop a communication framework that is available for that. All right. Peter Drucker says culture is strategy for breakfast. And this is where I'm going to end tonight. Usually when we say culture is strategy for breakfast, we look at it in the light of if you don't have a very good strategy, culture is going to eat it up. And then if your strategy is not strong, culture will override it. That's the perspective from which we look at it. But I'm also taking another perspective to say for anything that will grow, a company is a living entity, is a living organization. Strategy is also a living organization. So imagine you have a very solid strategy. Your culture will also feed from that strategy. And then the implication of this is your strategy can directly impact on your culture. If you have a very solid strategy, it is also going to impact on your culture, just as your culture can feed on your strategy. And you know what you feed on determines who you are. So if you feed on the right thing, you become strong. If you feed on the wrong thing, you become weak. Just the same way it works with our body system is the same way it works in an organization. If your strategy is solid, culture will feed on it, and you have a better organization. If your strategy is not solid, and quack and all of that, culture will also feed on it, and then you see that the organization begin to take the fall for that. So it's true that culture is strategy for breakfast, but what strategy do you have in place, and what is your culture feeding on? That is something as HR we need to ask ourselves and we need to think about. On this note, I really want to appreciate everyone tonight for the audience. I really do not take it for granted. I see a lot of bosses here, if I could use that word, within the HR field. And I really do not take this for granted tonight. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'll take a pause for now. If there are questions, I'll be willing to take them. Thank you so much, sir. Oluye, I don't take this for granted.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel Sonloluwa. You have done an excellent job. Great presentation, back to back. Thank you so much. I've checked the chat box, and I've also checked. Nobody has indicated interest to ask any question. I'm not surprised because of the level of thoroughness and, how practical hands-on this session has been. Ladies and gentlemen, please, I'll just unmute us so that we can all echo a resounding thank you to our facilitator for tonight. Let's show him how much we are thankful and grateful. We can unmute and we say thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the wonderful.
Thank you, facilitator. Thanks for everyone who organized this. May God bless you.
Yeah. And you're
thank you so
very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Well done, great facilitator.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
God bless the team. God bless the team.